Hello.
Hi,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to be talking to you.
Glad to have. Should I hide my face or should I? Do you want to look at me?
No, you're fine. What are you talking about? I feel like hiding my face. I didn't say that.
No, I always give people the option.
No, you're stop it. Okay. Well, let me hold on 1 second. Got people on the background, so I'm just checking that out. Just to make sure it's pronounced Orfeh.
You got it.
Okay. had to had to do a search because I wasn't sure. So there's some people like you just don't even ever hear for whatever reason you don't hear their if you don't hear their names enough. Like I don't know. I work at a certain job too where sometimes you have to say people's names you don't really know how to pronounce them, and I always feel bad if I get it wrong. So
Oh, please, everybody gets it wrong, and it's because it's not spelled. I mean,
right.
it's such an odd spelling, which is not my fault. And I think when I took my husband's last name 10 years into our marriage, I should have changed the spelling of my first name. But then I thought, too many people already know this. They just can't say it, and they probably won't be able to say it anyway.
I'm guessing the common misperception is Orpha.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, my mother was cruel, clearly, but she wasn't that cruel.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going right into it. So I was going to do an intro, but screw it. We're there.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Um, well, I mean, if I could ask, what's your ethnic background? Where does this name come from?
No, I mean, it's funny because everybody always guesses I'm either Greek, Israeli, everything under the sun I've gotten, but my mother made this name up based on Black Orpheus, the opera. That's
Okay.
where she got it. And all the other Orpheys or Orpheuses that the stories of, goes to
Right.
hell, looks back, turns to so all that, they're all spelled with a P-H-E-U-S.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think people would have understood or maybe thought more of or whatever, or had a less of a hard time with. But Orpheus Negros is Orfeus.
Uh-huh.
And that's where she got it from.
Okay.
And she thought, oh, boy or girl, this is the name.
Uh-huh. Are your parents artists? Are they artistic
No,
people?
no. I mean, she just loved that story. She loved that opera. She was just a fan. And she also thought it was kind of a either way it went. She was like, I can name my child this name. I was like, and there were by the way, this might have been the lesser of the two evils because she was either going to name me Orfeh, Alina, or Mercedes. So I don't know. I think at this point I might have gotten.
Well, the thing, it's interesting. We're kind of in the same age range. I noticed, and
We're Gen Xers?
yeah.
We're the coolest. We're the coolest.
Yeah. Well, it's just that back then we weren't really settled with, offbeat or cool names. We were, for the most part, our parents were fairly, they were birthed from the World War II generation.
True.
Fairly benign for the most part.
Although,
so it's nowadays you see Mercedes running around everywhere.
Absolutely. Or any, I always liken it to, look, I wound up in a business where I had the least interesting, bizarre name. I also went to a very artistic high school. So I went to high school with a rainbow, a chastity, an experience, an Eden. So once I got to high school,
those are hippie names.
Those are definitely hippie dippy names, but I also didn't feel the absolute least bit strange once I walked into high school. So,
Well, because again, you probably got the some sort of ethnic background name assumption. I would assume
everything but the right thing. Everything
but the right thing. Yeah. Who would? I would have never guessed Orpheus. That's where that comes from. I would have been the last thing I probably would have guessed. I probably haven't even read
Absolutely. it. No, you haven't. It is. Look, it's all congruent to the Greek myth. It's all one story,
right?
But it's spelled differently depending on where you hear it or where you read it. Right. It's just you know, she's a colorful soul, my mother. So, you
Yeah.
know, that was like, I'm
Well,
like,
that's cool. I mean, hey, you know, it's better than just being, you know, Jill, I guess.
I guess, I mean, you know, I have to say
But you
that
probably wished for that at some point.
you know, I didn't because there
Uh,
were, you know, the whole point of my having one name, honestly, and I always tell people this, the reason I only have one name is that during roll call in grade school, and you know, you went to grade school at the same time I did, you know how
Yeah.
cranky those teachers got at us because we were unruly kids. But
Yeah.
no teacher ever in the whole time from, I would say, kindergarten through 6th grade, okay?
Yeah.
They never said my name and my last name. It was just Orfeh. Everybody else
Yeah.
was Jill Smith, Mary
Right.
Jones, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
When they got to me, they could barely get through it. So it'd be like Orfeh. I'd be like, here. And that's how that all came to be, that I realized I don't really need a last name.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I'm being super, super honest, there are maybe 3 other Orphehs on the planet spelled the same way as my Orfeh.
Interesting.
And they were named after me, much to their great and utter chagrin and denial.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's it.
Their mothers were fans of me in my recording group. And I know it. A, because of the age and when the CD came out.
Yeah, it makes
I can do
sense.
the
Yeah.
math. And
Yeah.
because no one else spells it Orfeh.
Right. Right.
So if you're X years old and that's your name, somebody in your family was a fan. Deal with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, it's. I mean, it's a limited name, so it's not like, you know. I mean, imagine. Well, see, I was going to say, imagine how many children were named Madonna, but I mean, have you seen a lot of Madonnas?
I knew one really cool woman in New York City who drove a cab. Her name was Madonna.
Yeah.
She was the
I'm
only
surprised
other
that didn't get like a huge outbreak.
You know, because it was probably, you know, it would be very clear that that's who you named the person after.
Yeah.
You do
Yeah.
it for, you know, from the biblical.
And you're also thinking that time still it was a little bit sacrilegious, so.
Yeah, it was. And you're not gonna, you don't also get a lot of Beyoncés. You don't get a lot of, you know, you don't get a lot of that.
Yeah.
You don't get.
Yeah, when one person kind of takes the name, it does
taken.
make it a little more difficult.
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to.
Now you know more secrets than most people. I've never told the story about the other Orphehs on the planet.
Oh, that's interesting. Cool. All right, that's awesome. No, I once had a dream. I have an adopted son. If I ever had an actual, like, my biological son, I was going to name him Dante.
One of my best friends, we call him Dante.
Yeah,
His name's Dan.
I just kind of like, I like the idea of just it being a different name. But my ex-wife, when we were discussing having kids, was like, "No, we're not naming any of our children Dante."
I love that. It's one of my favorite names, Dante Darius. I love a lot of the male.
It's a great name. It's
yeah,
a great name.
It is.
So admittedly, I took this on because I knew of you. I am not a huge Broadway musical. I'm not a huge musical person at all. It's rare that I actually like a musical. So, but you know, I was intrigued, and I always like talking to people in areas. It's the weirdest thing. I am the most social person when I'm interviewing people, but I'm extremely antisocial when in real life. I can't hardly talk to anybody.
And this is what you want to do? That you're doing?
I know. I know. My ex-wife used to say, like, when I was working the food writing world in Chicago for a while, and I would have people come, you know, like people that were on TV come up to me and say hello and stuff, and she's like, I don't understand you. You are scared to talk to anyone, yet all these people, you sit there and you chat with them like you've known them your whole life, but then if you met Joe Schmo down the street, you'd be terrified. Like, I don't know. I'm a conundrum.
You're a dichotomy.
Exactly.
So yeah. That's like, listen, it's cool. There's an edge to it all. But, you know, listen, you need to be able to do this. It's more important than whether or not you can socially, you know, be hyper friendly to somebody that walks up to you in a bar.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember one time, this is back in the 90s, I was at Lilith Fair with my wife, my ex-wife. And Emmylou Harris was like standing right near us, watching like some second stage band. And I was like, I like had like, you know, my eyes bugged out, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, he goes, well, go say hi to her. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go say hi to her. And I didn't. I just kind of like sat there and like kind of I just did a little looking over occasionally and nervously looked back over and tried to ignore that she was there.
Oh gosh.
But anyway, so I was intrigued. And then out of nowhere, just yesterday, it gets announced that you and your husband are doing adapting a book called The Dancer, which kind of just, I mean, the timing of it was, I don't know if it was kismet or planned. I'm not really sure. I wasn't given any inside information. Tell me about this project, what you're going to do with it, why it spoke to you.
Listen, it's complete kismet because I had no idea that story was ever coming out. You know what I mean? It's very hit or miss what what Deadline wants to pick up. So we got very, 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 very lucky. But when I was in Pretty Woman, I had a good amount of time between scenes in my dressing room, and I love to read. And a very, very dear friend of mine literally handed me this book and said, hey, one of my oldest and dearest friends wrote this book. I love it. You'll love it. It's all about New York. It's gritty. It's a murder mystery. It's everything you like. Here, read it. I know you have time between scenes and you like to do something. So I read it, and like literally the prologue in, I was like, oh my God, this is a film. This is a film. I could, thinking so highly of myself. I can buy this book and adapt it. Oh my goodness. I was like, hey, this could be really great. And I really like, the author's a really wonderful man. My friend is obviously a very cool guy. And he brought this to me, and I was like, so we're going, let's say 2 years ago ish, almost, not quite. I was reading this, and I, called my agents, and I called my managers, and I was like, I want to adapt this book. I want to do something with it. And then, life gets in the way and you get busy, and I had the run of the show to deal with and all of that. And I think we didn't drop the ball. I think we forgot, and not in the like viscerally forgot. We just, there was other things that piled on and other things to do. I have a concert series with my husband that took up a lot of extra time. So I didn't really do what I needed to do at the time, which subsequently is a good thing. But while all of this madness was going on, and you're going, well, I've got to figure out something else to do in the meanwhile, while everything's coming back, if anything ever, all of that. And my eye hit to the book again. I'm like, wait a minute. So I hit up my agents. I hit up my manager. I'm like, remember that book? Let's get it now, and let's start to nurture this and cultivate it and sell it and, do something with it. I really, really am still passionate about it. And I read it again and I liked it better the second time, which is always a really good sign. Cause
interesting. Yeah.
And it's just, it appeals to all of my sensibilities. It's about New York City. It's 1985 time hopping to 58. So the author was very clever that he had this time hop. It's seedy. It's a murder mystery. The protagonist is not your typical hero at all, and it's now, which is why I said it's a little bit more interesting that it's happening now, or, hopefully will happen. 85 New York City, as a, native New Yorker, is a very different New York than it is today or has been.
For sure.
So I think that with the stuff that's going on in New York City right now, and the panic and the drama that's all going on, and as a native New Yorker, I'm like, you all don't remember the 80s. You don't remember, it was like this a lot more than it wasn't like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously not pandemic issue,
Right.
but there were times when I was a kid, you couldn't walk south of 32nd Street in Murray Hill and not have to watch your back. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, people don't know that because they're not from New York City, but.
Well, I've been rewatching a lot of films from the 70s and 80s filmed in New York, and
that was it.
I just watched Serpico again, and I'm like, every film from the 70s and the 80s, there's just garbage everywhere, and buildings look like they're ready to fall down.
Thank you. So growing up there, you're like the Lower East Side when it started to kind of come up, you're like, the Lower East Side? You couldn't walk on the Lower East Side if it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. You know what I mean? And suddenly it became like the place you couldn't afford. It was so strange.
Yeah. Well,
But
I was just talking to Chris Franz from the Talking Heads about growing up near in the Bowery, or not growing up, but living in the Bowery when they were coming up on it with CBGB's.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he lived a few blocks away, and he said, yeah, it was crazy. Looking back, I don't know how we did it, but we did it, you know.
By the way, the Bowery
Yeah.
never happened. Do you see what I'm saying? Like they tried and they tried and they tried and they tried to develop it, and they made these like floor through elevators opening up in your apartment, fancy, you know, condos and co-ops. Never happened. It's so no one can say, oh, the pandemic made the Bowery look like this. The Bowery never looked like that.
Right.
From when I was a kid, you know, and you're thinking that's just lower Third Avenue. So it's weird to go from like Murray Hill to, you know, about Stuyvesant Town, and then you're smack dab in the Bowery and you're like, oh God, you know, it's like, but nothing, you know. So the book being an 85 New York City is also very visually captivating to me, and the things we could do with that, you know what I mean? So the hope is that we package it, we sell it, we get it made, we put it on film, we cast it with some of the, you know, fabulous stars that we would have on our wish list. And, you know, it gets to be seen, because I think it's a book that deserves an adaptation into film. And by film, it could be a multi-series, multi-episodic anthology, or it could be a film, you know, a feature.
Yeah.
So I'm very
excited. The sky's
excited.
The limit right now.
It really is. It really, the days of like, you're only limited to like, well, you can only make it a series here, or you could only make it a film here. Everything is now blurred. You know, you can stream a movie on a Netflix or a Hulu or an HBO Max. You know what I mean? So I'm excited about it. And everyone's like, did you do this so you and Andy could star in it? I'm like, there's a part for Andy and there's a part for me, but we're not the stars of this film. You know what I mean? At all. So that's how
so basically you're working as producers on it, because
we want to wear the fancy hats now.
Well, that's a great position to be in, actually.
If you know, it's all
no, and as I know that, you know, it's not an easy business. The fact that, you know, you've had the success you've had is amazing enough to have, you know, now you're going out and it's like trying out and venturing out into a whole nother, you know, universe right now. I mean, this is not familiar territory, so it's going to be a learning experience, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I'm very lucky. I know some really wonderful people who do that. You know what I mean? We're big time, big shot producers and big shot showrunners and big shot writers. They just have to want to be in on this with us. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You can be best friends with someone. If they don't love the project, they don't love the project. If they don't have the time, they don't have the time. I think the time factor is there nowadays, but you still have to have I want them to love it as much as I do, and go, of course you want to make this.
Well, you know, that's the worry when you start doing any project. You know, I mean, I've written some things too over the years, and I'm sure everybody that starts any project artistically wants it to be the success that they see in their heads. But sometimes, I mean, you know, all the people that write, and, you know, they write script after script after script, and they can, you know, end up running 10 films and then have 200 that they wrote that nobody ever sees.
Oh, absolutely. Please.
You know,
that's why you gotta keep moving.
And those 10 scripts, out of those 10, 5 could be nothing like what they wrote.
Sure. Absolutely.
You know.
Or you can take the most brilliant book and screw it up royally. You know what I'm saying? Or take an book and make a brilliant thing out of it. Who knows? It's always like, you know, it's a crapshoot.
It's how it's always been. I'm reading about the Houston family right now, and, you know, even in the book, just before John Huston died, he gave the author permission to ask everybody in his life anything, and he would talk about it, you know, about some projects that he made, and he looks at them and was like, yeah, I screwed that one up. You know, that's not at all what I try to do, or that's not who I really wanted to star in it, but the studio said he's got to star in it. So it's like, that's who we were saddled with, you know, it's like that sort of thing.
Nothing's ever, unless you are like the literal top three of the top three, nothing is ever really, other than being a performer and your live performance being within your control at the moment you're performing it, you have no control over any of this.
Right, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
So,
you're getting a lot of really cool light happening right now. Which
thank God. I need it. I don't even have my ring light on. I'm just sitting here.
No, it's actually fascinating. It's like somebody decided to change the scenery in the background.
It is September, my dear.
Yeah. They
won't even see this. We're just recording this for fun.
Yeah, you're in New York now, correct?
No, I'm in Miami, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you live in both LA and New York, and then Miami too?
No, I live in New York. We frequent LA, or we did frequent LA. It's been a while. But Miami is our second home.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But we weren't here we didn't get here till the end of June. Okay. So we were in New York for all of the rush of madness.
And then you weren't able to leave, of course, during that time, really. Or you could, but, you know.
We could, but we eked out when we could. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. What do you like about living in Miami, besides, you know, warm weather you hear through?
Listen, the weather, being a New Yorker, any weather is good weather. You know, the weather is great. There are views, there's water, there's sun, there's air. There are, you know, things that don't exist in a city environment. And it is a city, but it's a different kind of, you know, view. It's a different kind of space. You know what I'm saying? You can go for a run. Yeah, you take your mask, you go everywhere with your mask, but you can go places. You can do some things. My friends and relatives in New York are saying it's starting to come back. Obviously, people are getting to eat outside. That's a great thing. But here it's just that there's more of something to see. Do you know what I mean? Rather than staring at bricks, which there's nothing wrong with. I love it. I grew, you know, that's my home. But for your head, if you're able to, you know, everyone made the mass exodus out of New York City. Andy and I were the last to even think about leaving. Yeah. But it is good for your head to change it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, be able to go for a run, be able to, you know, go and eat outside of, you know, if you know that everyone and the protocols are in place and everything's safe, it's a little bit, you can't just kind of molt in your environment.
Yeah.
You know.
Just real quick, now the lighting has become a point where it almost looks like you're disappearing.
I have disappeared.
It looks like you're in a bunch of fog.
They're coming to get me. The aliens are coming to get me.
I don't know if there's something you can do. I can barely see you with this.
How's that?
There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. It was really cool for a minute, and all of a sudden they just got to the point where you almost weren't there.
That's my aura.
Well, I don't want to take a ton of your time today, but I did want to ask you, you know, you did have early success in the music world.
Yes.
How did you go from that, you know, which, you know, you had the success, but you had the wrong people representing you, to getting to Broadway and finding success there?
I mean, it's a very bizarre story, and it could be very excessive and convoluted, but I can make it very simple for you. First of all, I loved being in the music business. I know it gets a bum rap. I loved it. I still miss it. I wish that things had gone better. But when I was a recording artist, it was the 90s. And if you recall, the 90s was all about your group, but then you had a ton of dancers and you had a ton of choreography, and the videos were very grand and very presentational. And you know, had all the choreography and the dancing and your troupe basically that you traveled with. Right. Well, oddly enough, my two lead male dancers, their next gig after us being together and on the road and going all over the world together, my main male dancer wound up getting a gig as the choreographer of Footloose, the musical on Broadway.
Okay.
You know, all the dancers were always looking to become choreographers or directors, you know.
Right.
And he called me up one day after, you know, the implosion that was the music business and our group and all of that. And he's like, hey, so I'm choreographing Footloose, the musical. Come and audition. I was like, come and audition for what? You know, I didn't even, that was not my world. That was not my universe,
Right.
Not even remotely. And I hadn't, you know, other than commercials and voiceovers and jingles, that's what I did as a kid. I didn't ever audition for musicals. That was just not what I did. I just,
Right.
was gonna go be a pop star, and that was it. And he called me, he's like, yeah, come audition, bring a book, bring your book. I said, bring my book. I thought he meant, and I've told this story, but it just gets funnier every time. He meant to bring my music book to sing from.
Yeah,
and I thought he meant that I'd be in the waiting room so long that I should bring something to
And that's how I would at first interpret it too.
Good. So I went in completely inappropriate clothing. I didn't know there'd be a dance call. I've been behind the table auditioning dancers. I'd never had to audition as a dancer, but it was a very intensive show. And I auditioned, and they hired me basically hours after I left the audition. And they gave me the job as the swing in the show, which meant I covered all of the female leads in the show.
Okay.
And the difference between a swing and an understudy at the time, the lines get blurred very much throughout the years, but a swing was someone that wasn't on stage doing the show. An understudy generally only had one role to understudy and was in the ensemble on a nightly basis. Right. Swings had more people's tracks to learn, and they were not in the ensemble. They were just lead. You had many leads that you knew their part and could go into it at any given moment.
Gotcha.
So that was my Broadway debut, and it was only because my dancer, A.C. Ciula, called me up and said, I'm choreographing Footloose. Come and audition. That's how I wound up on Broadway.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, like, to prove that how little I do know about Broadway.
I didn't either, though, so.
But the idea, this swing idea, I'd never heard of that before. So that's how out of, you know, I heard of understudies, of course, but I didn't realize that there was another kind of category.
And by the way, like now in Pretty Woman, all of the swings who were some of my closest friends in the cast were actually in the show and did swing all of the ensemble members too. Right. So at any given point in time, one of them was on, or two of them were on, or four of them were on, you know what I mean? But we specifically in Footloose, the swings specifically understudied or, you know, covered the leads.
Yeah.
So there was no place for us in the ensemble. So,
yeah.
You know,
I haven't seen much of last season yet, but I did this crazy thing last November where I decided to a friend of mine was obsessed with Law and Order. What is it?
SVU?
SVU, yeah. Why am I not remembering it? And I was like, you know, it's available, and I'm an obsessive type. So when I started it, I couldn't stop until I had gotten to season 20 or whatever wasn't the newest season. So I got through the whole thing, and then so I was like looking through your credits, and I noticed you did one last season, which I haven't seen. So I'm interested to, you know, go and binge that season now.
Have you binged season 17?
Were you in season 17?
No, but my husband's Mike Dodds.
Wait, that's him?
That's
Andy. He was on.
That was very, very horribly killed by Brad Garrett.
Oh, wow.
That's Andy.
Wow.
Andy was Mike Dodds on season 17.
I mean, that's it's not a real person, so I mean, it didn't really happen. I don't know why I was feeling bad for a second.
Oh, listen, every time it airs, and it's now rerun a jillion times, people still call me to make sure Andy's okay when that episode. Heartfelt Passages is the episode, and people still call me to check in on him when that.
You know, and I just saw a video with you and your husband, and I was like, there was something familiar about him. I just like I was like,
See?
I can't concentrate on him right now. I'm not talking to him.
Now you have to
So
go back and watch SVU
that's
17.
that's hilarious. Well, my friend that got me into the show is going to find this fascinating.
Oh, he'll love it. He'll love it. You'd be like, you were talking to Mike Dodds' wife.
Yeah,
That's what I am now. I'm Mike Dodds' wife.
That's great. So you ended up getting to be on the show. What was that experience like? I mean, that show.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
iconic.
I mean, I've known, I had done Criminal Intent many, many years ago. One good episode.
Well, I mean, hey,
fabulous.
I'm watching 20 seasons worth in 2 months. I saw people come back and play different characters 3 or 4 different times. So
Absolutely.
it wouldn't be like unusual for you, to be on the same show even.
Listen, I just want them to resurrect Andy for no good reason. He didn't really die. It was great. Mariska Hargitay directed the episode I was on, and my scene, it was a very, very, very quick scene, but I was on it with Ice-T and Jamie, and Ice-T and I had the whole scene together. Mariska was directing it. It was the most enchanted and amazing experience you could possibly have, because all the, most fabulous people, and they're all fabulous in that cast. You just, I had the best time. I had my one-on-one scenes with Jamie and Ice-T, and it was a great day. We got there when it was still dark out, and we were all really sad that my scene was over so quickly, so we had a great time. It feels like 20 years ago, but it was January.
Yeah, okay.
I think I was the first episode of the second part of that season. And it was the first episode of that part 2 of that season.
All right, well, I'm interested.
Couldn't have been a more wonderful
checking
experience.
it out.
Yeah, so
it blows my mind. I didn't recognize your husband from the show. I don't know. Maybe because I watched 200 something episodes in 8 weeks. Maybe that's part of it. Yeah. Maybe I just had too much in my brain after a while, and I probably wouldn't even recognize Christopher Maloney if he was standing next to me.
Now you have to go back. Now you have to go watch.
Yeah. What is, and I'm going to wrap it up here soon for you, but
I'm having a great time. Thank you.
You've done music. That went, the way it went. You've done Broadway, and that's been a success. You've done recording and touring, and you've done TV and some film work, correct?
Definitely many indie films you will never ever see.
Because they're so you don't realize how many films are made. I'm part of a group of people that enjoy talking about movies from the 80s, and they're putting up posters of movies. Like I used to be IMDb in the 80s. Used to like a complete nerd. Write everything down when it was released, and there are movies people are bringing up I have never even heard of.
I'm probably starring in 4 of them. No.
But what's your favorite things about each? What's your favorite thing about touring, about acting, and acting also goes in the Broadway stuff. But what are your favorite things about each?
I think that as far as if I get lucky enough knowing that Andy he's had the experience, and I know I'm right about this, I think the thing about episodic television and ending up on a series and getting lucky enough to do that, however many seasons, SVU is an anomaly. That doesn't happen every day. But I think that you get to be the same character, but every episode you have a different set of circumstances and a different situation. To me, that's very interesting. It's like you become this other person every week, every episode, but you're still that person, which is the polar opposite of musical theater. You have to play that same exact show 8 times a week indefinitely. Right. So it's a different task to be able to play the show, a live show, as if you've played it for the first time.
Right.
Every night, twice on Wednesday and twice on Sunday. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a different muscle to flex as opposed to being, lucky enough to get to do something different every episode for TV. So I found that's different, That's the difference there. I love the immediate gratification of a live audience. So whenever we were touring with the music group and we were going all over the world doing concerts, that's very kinetically energetic. So you're literally getting the feedback in real time. So you know if you suck, you know if you're great, you know if you're really connecting, you know if people aren't paying attention. You know, I've been an opening act. That's a tough spot to be in, you know, because no one wants to deal with the opening act. They're just waiting to bide their time so that the, you know, headliner can go on. And we, you know, we would work hard and we would be able to capture the audience back in those days because we knew that was the task at hand. So that's in and of itself was very gratifying until we got to start to headline ourselves. And, you know, the audiences were really big and really rowdy and I loved it. The music business I miss in general. I just loved it. I loved all of the pomp and circumstance and the glam and the crap, all of it. I connected with it really well. And I also love to produce records. I love sitting behind the mixing board. I like that behind the scenes stuff. And I got to do a lot of that, you know, because I was producing and writing and vocal arranging and, you know, occasionally playing the shaker, you know, it's like, I got to wear, again, I like that. I got to wear a lot of hats than just being the chick singer, like they used to like to call me. And, you know, that's the short of it. I could give you a billion other reasons what is, what isn't, but you know, that's what the difference and the similarity, it's all art. I think anytime you're able to express yourself and connect with people through art, it's a beautiful thing. But there is nothing like immediate audience response. That's unlike anything. Everything else is kind of in a vacuum, you know. You know, you make a record in a vacuum. You are on TV until it airs, and you're not in everybody's living room when it airs to see how they feel about it. You know, live performances, it's its own entity. So I'm really happy that Andy and I have the concert series that will hopefully come back. You know, just being able to do concerts. I would love to think that'll come back sometime, hopefully next year. And I love that. I love just the live energy.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing anything virtually? Like a friend of mine does, he owns, he's a part owner in a club in New York where him and his band perform out of every week practically. Have you thought about doing something online, you know?
Sure, if they ask, you know, they've streamed some, you know, they did air one of our last concerts for one time only and it did very, very well. And the audience, there was a big audience watching it. So, I mean, I think those opportunities exist and I'd be happy to, you know, look into that. Yeah.
Well, because right now, I mean, I'm friends with somebody that in a band that did a drive-in concert.
I've seen some of those online.
Which, you know, it maybe is probably more fitting for certain types of music, I suppose, than maybe others, I suppose. But, you know, the virtual thing could be, that might be the way things go for a while. I mean, you know. We can't even really get into restaurants really. And I gotta be honest, I have a lot of friends that own restaurants and I have a lot of friends in the arts and I'm not even going to see a movie in the theater right now.
Oh, I don't think you can. I mean, you can't here and you can't in New York. So
you can in out in the Chicago area, but I have no desire to. I mean, it's like 25% capacity. It's like that still worries me. And even though there's like films I'd like to go see that are out right now, it's just call me whatever. I mean, to me, it's a dangerous thing to be.
No, you're being careful, and you're in a space this. You know, that's the thing about theaters. The spaces are this big, and the seats are this big, and you're fighting for arm space. You know, how is that?
Even at limited capacity, you're still. You know, I don't know. I don't feel like everybody has all the information about what we're going through yet. I certainly don't trust that they have the information how to filtrate the air properly yet.
or how to fix it. You know, how do you fix something you know nothing about? So,
that's the problem. Yeah.
Always err on the side of caution, but you know, listen, you're talking to someone who used to wear masks on airplanes long before any of this stuff happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I used to see the stuff. I mean, you as an American, you'd see like, Chinese people, in particular, other Asian countries too, but mostly China. That was a normal way of life for a lot of people.
And it's a very normal way of life for singers that are going to do a concert.
And that's interesting too. That's an interesting point. So you just don't want to catch anything to screw up your voice.
No, you can't, because then how do you get out of it? You're flying somewhere to do a concert in another city or country. You can't be like, I can't.
Yeah.
No rescheduling that. You know what I mean? I've been wearing gloves and scarves and covering my face on the subway my whole life. And people stared at me funny, and now my old castmates will call me and be like, you had it right all along, because I'd wear like sunglasses and gloves and hats and covered myself up at the stage door for years.
Like the Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, literally. They'd be like, what are you doing? I'm like, those kids are gonna hug us and spit on us and kiss us and stuff, and I can't get sick. How am I gonna do 8 shows a week? And now they call and go, you had it right all along.
Why can't we just get why haven't personal force fields been made?
Yeah.
You see in all those sci-fi movies, you press a button on your wristwatch, and all of a sudden you get a force field surrounding your body, and you walk through life and you're fine.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Car bounces off you if it hits you. The whole thing.
That would be amazing. Maybe they can invent those.
all the things that as a kid I grew up thinking one day we'd have. The only thing we have is the phone from Star Trek.
Yeah, and the crazy weird diseases. But other than that, we don't have any of the cool gadgets.
Well, all right. Well, I had a really good time.
Oh, good. Me too.
And to go back to what I was saying earlier, every interview I do, even if it's somebody I've interviewed before, right before I get on to do the interview, I am sitting there with a bundle of nerves, and it's even worse. It's even worse in these instances where I admitted to you that I don't know fully your career as much as I would some people.
I don't even know my career, so don't worry about it.
But so I was like, I right before it, I was getting like, oh no, is this gonna go bad? Is this gonna be like one word answers, and like, because I'm not asking the right questions.
For me, have we met? We have now.
Well, for the most part, people in the entertainment business have no problem talking generally, unless they're Bob Dylan or something like that. They have to be you have to be a pretty moody person in the entertainment business to not want to talk.
Yeah.
But no, this went very well, and
I thought so too.
I appreciate you taking the time, and I appreciate getting the chance to get to know you virtually.
Me too. Minutes. Listen, thanks for having me. You didn't know me from whatever, and now there's so much more to know.
That's why I take some things on, because it's like, well, you'll never know what you're gonna learn. And today I learned what a swing is, if nothing else.
Yeah, but me too.
So, God, I don't know. I just, again, thank you, and I wish you and your husband good luck. And
thank you.
And enjoy Miami, and hopefully get back to doing something. And good luck with the dancer.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. And
hopefully the next time we talk, you'll be coming out with that in some form.
Somehow, some way. But thanks for having me. This was fun. I
appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a good day.
You too. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.